Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Mason Sims, and welcome to another episode of our show. So, tonight we have a special guest joining us. His name is Andrew Wilson, and he is the current deputy coroner for Pickens County and also the county coroner elect for next year. So, he's going to share with us experiences about his time in EMS and also his time in the coroner's office. He's also a former classmate of mine at Daniel High School, so it's good to get reconnected with him. So again, my name is Mason Sims, and let's get started. Good evening, everybody. Here I have with me Andrew Wilson. He is the coroner elect for next year, and we also graduated in the same high school class. And Andrew, thank you for coming on here this evening.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be here tonight, mate.
Yeah, so are you excited about your upcoming term?
Very excited. It's been a long process so far, waiting for this time to get here, but I'm very excited for January.
Yeah, but how long have you been deputy coroner again?
So I've been here at Pickens County Coroner's Office for right at 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, the one question I had for you too is kind of like tell us a little about your experience as being a Pickens County employee.
So I started working for Pickens County back in 2016. I started as a basic EMT, and I worked part-time for them until I think 2017, whenever I got hired on full-time. And then while I was working full-time as a basic EMT, I went on to get my paramedic and then eventually got promoted to being a field training officer with Pickens County EMS. And there for a couple years, I just felt like working on a truck wasn't really what I was supposed to be doing in my life. So stepped down to a part-time role and continued to work part-time while I started teaching full-time. And that was in, I think, 2021, I think, whenever I left EMS.
Was that at TCTC or?
No, I was teaching at Upstate EMS Council. It's a private EMS institute over in Greenville.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of my friends around the Billingsley said that her daughter, I think she
Yeah.
took one here.
Yep, she was one of my EMT students several years ago.
Yeah, that's good. Do you miss doing that?
I miss teaching. I still get to kind of do a little bit of the teaching because I'm still an adjunct instructor, but I don't miss teaching full time. I quickly found out that being in office all the time was not for me.
Right. Yeah, it requires a lot of patience.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is what inspired you to work with AMS? Is this something that you've always been interested in? Because I remember back when we were in high school, you're doing some like volunteer work.
Yes. Whenever I was 16, we were still in high school. I started volunteering at Central Fire Department, and I did that for a total of about 10 years. And then while I was volunteering there, and after we graduated high school, I started taking a whole bunch of other like rescue type classes through the fire department, and I really liked the technical aspect of things. And then I did a couple ride times with EMS, and decided I wanted to go and take my EMT. And then it just kind of transpired from there.
Yeah, and I remember during your free periods you were over there working as a volunteer, and
Yeah,
it seemed like you put in a lot of hours.
a lot of hours and a lot of training that they were able to get me. So.
Yeah, so what inspired you to transfer from the EMS into the coroner's department?
So ever since I first met our current coroner, Candy Kelly, probably 15 or more years ago now. I always thought that what she did was a really cool job, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And that's kind of as far as it went. That's cool. Never really tried to do anything else. Then closer to the end of my tenure with Pickens EMS, I told Candy that I would like to come and try to work for her one day, just to see how it actually is. A couple years ago now, like I said, it's been almost 2 years that I've been here. I seen her on a call one night, and she said, "Hey, in the near future, I'm going to have a position open if you would like to apply." So then, and this is whenever I was teaching full time. So I did a whole lot of praying and talking with my wife about it, and I felt like God was telling me that this was my calling and this was my ministry. So I decided to take a leap of faith and come on over here, and it has paid for itself tenfold.
Yes. And did you say that when you were at EMS last time, you and I had talked that you were working, was it about like 80 hours a week? A lot of times.
With EMS,
Yeah, before you went to the corner.
so with EMS, we work 24 48s. So you're on for 24 hours and you're off for 48 hours. So on your short week, you automatically work 48 hours. And then your long week, you work 72. But while I was teaching full time, I have a 40-hour regular job in the classroom, but I was also working part time. So probably maybe 80 plus hours a week then.
Okay. Yeah. And so, what's one thing that you would like to see happen during your first term as coroner at Pickens County?
So one of the first things that I'm really going to try to start looking into is different grant opportunities. There's a lot of money that's out there from different grantors that we could really use for our office specifically. I mean, Pickens County is growing at a very rapid rate. They're estimating it to increase by at least 50,000 population in the next 5 years. And currently, we only have 2 full-time investigators, including myself in our office. And once I'm in Candy's position, be including the coroner, we'll only have 2 full-time investigators. So it's a very, very tough job mentally, emotionally, physically, but especially whenever we don't have a whole lot of staff. So like I said, I'm definitely looking at some grants to see if there's some different avenues that we might be able to go to try to alleviate some of those issues.
That's good. Yeah, and that's one thing that Candy had mentioned to me too when I ran for county council. That was one of her frustrations. I feel like there could have been more funding than there was with the coroner's office.
Yeah. And I get it everywhere. Every single county department is short staffed. I mean, it doesn't matter what county you go to, nowhere has enough staffing. But we could definitely use some additional assistance. And like I said, if we could look into some of these different grant opportunities, I think that it would help, especially being an elected official now as well, to really make sure that we're taking care of not only the deceased folks here in our county, but also taking care of our taxpayers. Because if we can get these grants to help alleviate some of these issues, then we don't have to solely rely on taxpayer funding.
Right. And some counties like interact with others. Like for instance, I see Rusty Killinger from Spartanburg County. He's on the news a lot. Is that something that Candy had done before? Like reached out to other counties, kind of see what they were doing,
As far as kind of seeing like what their process is and how they're doing everything.
and like possibly the idea of like getting grants.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually there's a webinar that I was a part of earlier today, and the one that was teaching it, her name is Bobby Jo O'Neill. She's the coroner for Charleston County. Since 2008, I think she said she's brought in over $3 million in grants to Charleston County Coroner's Office. So that's just one example of kind of like what you were talking about of taking some guidance from other people and trying to use grants in better ways.
Okay. That makes sense. And the other thing I was going to say is like, what are some lessons I guess that you learned along the way as your time as deputy?
In general, anytime you're trying to manage a government office, I guess you could say, is it is all a game of chess. You can't play checkers. Checkers goes way too fast. You have to be very strategic and plan everything out and be patient. Have to be very, very patient, and be able to explain everything. While you're asking for any funding, while you're asking for an increase in this or a decrease in that, just make sure that you're patient and you can explain everything.
Right. 'Cause you're pretty much it's pretty much a 24/7 job, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Even whenever I'm not on call, I can still get called at any point.
Yes, and with actually some of the seats flipped on the county council and the other one then kind of winning by a small margin, what are some things you'd like to see the county council do in January once everybody's sworn in?
In the past, I've always gotten along very well with everyone that's on county council. And personally, I definitely want to make sure we continue to have those relationships where we can get along, whether we like each other professionally or not. That's a different story. But personally, we get along with everyone. But, hopefully with the issues that our current coroner Candy has had in the past of not getting funding through county council, hopefully with some of these seats getting flipped, then that might make it a little bit easier, at least open some eyes, have some new ears in there to hear what we're needing and why we're needing it.
Right, and I actually asked Scott Lang that question when he was on here. He said he wanted to use some of the funds towards EMS, and I was wondering if if the coroner's office that fell into that service, that's considered like an emergency type service.
Right. Actually, they just passed state law. I think it was back last year, saying that coroners are officially first responders. So hopefully they'll look into the law and realize that we fall into that same category, and they'll try to help us out some too.
Right. And I was surprised too when I saw on the website, I saw there's total for people like you mentioned. Seems like you, as far as like staff, it's kind of limited.
It is very, very small office for a very large population. And of course, I know there's lots of other counties in our state that are more populated than we are. I think we're the 6th or 7th most populated county in the state. But there's some counties out there. We'll take Lancaster, for example. So their population, I can't remember exactly. I think as of the 2020 census, it was like 95,000. But they have 6 full-time investigators. We have roughly 135,000, and we have 2 full-time investigators. So there's a lot of things that other folks are able to do that we just don't have the staffing to be able to do.
That's good. And would you, like once you're elected, would you want to see like some more people now hired and
Oh, absolutely. If we could increase how many investigators we have, that will make it so much better to be able to take care of all the decedents we have, but also make sure we can take care of all the families of the deceased. So there's more cases that we can make sure are thoroughly investigated, and we can look at every single case independently and not, I'm by far not saying we rush through any cases, because we investigate every case thoroughly, but we get very behind. We have, on a regular basis, we have a backlog of trying to make sure that we get everything done, just because we have so many folks die in this county and we don't have enough personnel to investigate it in a timely manner.
Right. I noticed like Tim and I did my speech at Jennings. It seemed like everyone in there knew who Candy was, and
Right.
that's amazing how many families that y'all probably helping.
Yeah. It's crazy how many times I'll just, go to Walmart or go to the gas station or something. Somebody will come up and say, "Hey, you're Andrew." I have no idea who they are, but it's because, we help their family at, some point along the way. There's roughly 1,000 people that die a year in Pickens County right now. For each 1,000 people, there's several different family members that we come in contact with. We are in the community, interacting with the community on a regular basis.
Okay. Yeah, another thing I was going to mention is I know, being in the coroners, obviously you probably see you have to see a lot more than most other people would in another occupation. Have you found it kind of easy to not like bring that stuff home?
So, like I said, I did a lot of praying before I came over to the coroner's office. And truthfully, I thought that I was being called to be an evangelist or a preacher, and then continue praying and realize that this is where my calling was. So I truly believe that the Lord has blessed me and protected my mind and protect the things that we see, to just kind of leave work at work, have family at home, not really cross the two over.
Right. Yeah, and I definitely feel like, at least Candy had told me too, that it's truly a calling to do that.
It is absolutely a calling. It is the hardest mentally and emotionally job I've ever done, but it is the most rewarding job that
I'm looking forward to having you as our next forum.
I'm very excited to continue to serve the citizens here of Pickens County.
Yes, and is there anything else too that you'd like your constituents and our viewers tonight to be on the lookout for during the next few years as your time as coroner?
So one thing that we've gotten started last year, I think it was, Candy kind of had the idea of some different projects, but she never had the staffing to help get it off the ground. So one of the things that we were able to launch last year was our Infant Safe Sleep program. And with that program, we offer a free pack and play to any resident of Pickens County that doesn't have somewhere safe for their infant to sleep. And if anyone needs any information for that, you can call our office and we'll give that phone number here in just a minute. But that's one of the programs that we started end of last year, I think it was. We also started another program where we're actually doing car seat installations and car seat checks. And that one actually came from, we had an incident a little while back with a child who was in a motor vehicle accident and wound up dying. And we had some folks in our child fatality review. After every child fatality, we have a review team. We come together, review it, kind of talk about it, and most importantly, we talk about what can we as a community do to prevent this same type of death from happening in the future. So like I said, we came up with the idea of doing the car seat checks and installation. We started doing county-wide events. We did 2 this year. We're planning on having at least 3 next year. So like I said, those are just 2 of the programs we've started, and I'm really wanting to start some other type of outreach programs so that we can hopefully prevent any other senseless deaths.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and would you say the opioid epidemic, because that probably one with the top cause of death, at least in our county?
I wouldn't say it's the top cause of death, because, overall, natural deaths are probably still number 1. But outside of naturals, drugs and suicide are pretty close neck and neck here in Pickens County. We have a huge problem with drug abuse and with mental health throughout our entire county.
Right. That's how I worked at CBS as an intern for about 3 years. It was amazing how many people were leaving the behavioral health come in for a prescription for the methadone to slowly weed off and stuff. So yeah, hopefully, and I hope too that for Tommy Blankenship, the newly elected sheriff, they were able to come up with a pretty good strategy to help reduce that. Yeah.
Well, last year, they didn't change the laws, but they kind of changed the interpretation of the law. And I shouldn't say change it. They relooked at the interpretation of some of the laws. And I know at least here in the upstate, they're starting to charge on drug-related deaths. If they can figure out where the drugs came from, then that's something they can actually charge the individual that sold it or gave it to them with that person's deaths. Last year, there was one point where I think there was 74 or 75 arrests with over 300 charges that were brought, throughout all those different folks because of drug-related deaths. I think that's something that's really helped. Just hopefully that we can continue working together as a team, our office, the sheriff's office, and all the municipal police departments to make sure that we can solve all these cases and hopefully bring charges to try to help with the drug epidemic.
Right, that's one thing. One thing I heard from Chuck James when I went to one of the sheriff forums. He was saying that they would call, like say, like the parents of the person, and then the parents would kind of assume like their son or daughter is being targeted or something.
Really?
Yeah, like the son or daughter was selling the stuff.
I got you.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy though. Just the parents are just they just don't really sing like in belief that that's that.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly how it is from the law enforcement perspective, but I mean, even from our side, there's a lot of times that we'll go out and we'll make a death notification, and of course, families are asking what happened. And a lot of times, the bad thing is in the field, we don't have all the answers. Someone we think was drug-related death based off of our investigation so far. We'll go ahead and do a urine drug screen and see what all that they might test positive for. And we can share that information with families. And a lot of times, whenever we tell them, they tested positive for these different drugs, they almost get mad at us, like we're the reason they tested positive for these drugs and that they don't believe that they actually did. And I truly wish they did. I wish there was something else, or I mean, really overall, I wish that there were so many folks that weren't dying in general from these senseless things.
Right, and you said that there's a number and some content information you'd like to share as well before we.
Yeah. So the phone number for our office is 864-89561. And again, if anyone has any questions in general, please feel free to reach out to us. And especially if you're needing anything with car seats, car seat checks, car seat installations, or if you're needing pack in place, please make sure you reach out, and we'll do everything we can to help you guys.
That sounds great. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just again, thank you very much for this opportunity to come over here with you tonight.
Yeah, we'd love to have you again in the future.
Anytime.
All right, let's get seeing you again, Andrew.
Thank you.
Before we close out our show this evening, what I'm going to plan on doing for the next few weeks of my episode is I'm going to start doing some more commentating. So usually during my episode, I have people that I interview, which I'll still continue to do. But tonight I wanted to address the issue of immigration. It is a very important issue, and I feel like with everything going on with the Laken Riley trial, I feel like we needed to talk about this. So one thing I wanted to say is I saw that AOC had spoke about integration. She suggests that since we have all these undocumented immigrants, to make the undocumented documented, which sounds good, but the thing is, there are some out there that do bring crime into our country. And don't get me wrong, there are immigrants out there that are doing well for our country and building our economy and working. But the main issue I wanted to mention was I went online at some of the requirements, at least in Mexico, to be able to travel to places like the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada. Pretty much, you can't just have a Mexican passport in order to travel to some of these countries. You have to go through a process of obtaining a visa. And to my understanding, it's very difficult in order to get that. And I'm just thinking to myself, I mean, how is that fair to those that, have a stable lifestyle in Mexico? They have a family. They're very hardworking. They have a job to return to. And yet they get declined for a visa while others are able to come to this country illegally and are automatically either granted citizenship or can stay here for several years. I feel like that's the biggest issue is we need to focus on, and like Julie Baker said in one of my interviews not too long ago, we're a country of immigrants. And I'm happy for those that want to come here, but come in here the legal way. We'll be very happy to have you with open arms if you're willing to do that. Another thing I saw too is our neighbors up in Canada, they're having an issue right now with immigration. They're letting a lot of people come in, and I've noticed that locals that have lived in Canada for many years, they're starting to leave just because, the country's simply becoming overpopulated, and the cost of living is just increased tremendously because of all the people that are coming in there. So that's one thing that I hope that for next administration next year that we focus on is getting a good system of immigration. And like I said, I know there are ones that come in here for the better, but we really need to have them come in the legal way so that we can have a good system going forward. So that concludes our show tonight. And if you have not already, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Facebook for further updates. Tune in next week. We have another guest joining us on Tuesday. His name's Clay Counts, and he will be announcing a very important decision that he has made based on what you have seen on his Facebook post. So again, my name is Mason Sims, and good night, everybody.